All right, now we're going to talk about the frequency and the period change. So I'm quickly going to draw the sine parent function, and hopefully by now you know that it starts and stops in 2 pi. Half of that's pi, half of that's pi over 2, and then 3 pi over 2 as I count up. Sine starts at a midline and stops at a midline. All right, the parent function has a starting and a stopping at 2 pi. It starts and stops at 2 pi. That means there's one cycle every 2 pi. So for the parent function, like we said before, the period is 2 and the frequency is 1. There's one cycle in 2 pi. We just talked about amplitude. Amplitude is the distance from the midline, which is 0. My midline is 0 and my amplitude is 1. So now we're going to look at some things here. If I put all of these key things into the parent function with words, it would be y equals, my amplitude goes in front, my sine, my amplitude, my sine, my frequency, my x, and then we would change the midline after that. So amplitude and frequency go in these two positions. So let's do a little bit of changing of the frequency. Let's suppose I say y equals sine of 1, I am struggling here, 1/2 x. So if I ask you to break this apart, you would say, okay, my amplitude is 1, because there's no number here. My frequency comes right in front of the variable. Frequency is 1/2, and that means there's 1/2 a cycle in 2 pi. Now we need to figure out our period. If there's 1/2 a cycle in 2 pi, I need to figure out where I stop for a complete cycle. And what you do to find your period is you take 2 pi and you divide it by your frequency. So in our situation, I take 2 pi and I divide it by 1/2. 2 pi divided by 1/2 is the same as taking 2 pi times its reciprocal, which is 2, and my new period is 4 pi. My midline is not going to change. We're not talking about that yet. So let's sketch this out. I am going to draw the parent function here just so that you can see it. It's quick and easy. Parent function for sine, middle, high, middle, low, middle. So this is our parent function and what everything stems from. Now our new graph, y equals 1 sine 1/2 x, is going to start and stop in 4 pi this time. So if this distance is 2 pi, I double it for 4 pi. And then you have to start thinking about cutting things in half. 4 pi in half is 2 pi. 2 pi in half is 1 pi. And then I'm counting up. The distance from 0 to pi is 1 pi, 2 pi, 3 pi, 4 pi. That will be your critical points. Cut in half, and then count up. My amplitude is not changing. It's a sine function, so I start at the midline. I go high, I go midline, I go low, and I go back to midline. So here is my new sine function. And if you think about it, it says I'm going to have 1/2 of a cycle in 2 pi. Well, here is 2 pi, and I have half of the cycle in 2 pi. Same thing works for cosine. So give this a try. Ask questions if you need to.